Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's a thing that people have been saying lately, as it describes kind of modern U.S. comics, that a lot of them are being written as Netflix pitches, and I get the idea behind that statement. It's not wrong, but I want to twist a little bit because I think there's a little bit more, or maybe a little bit less to it than that. You see, the reason why I can't fully jump on board with these are Netflix pitches is because, as we've seen, the creators aren't getting Netflix deals. There's a very small handful of people that actually penetrated that streaming market and are getting the comics out. And miracle upon miracles, the people who are doing that are pretty much telling traditional comic stories and then having to live with the adaptation and work on it that way. They're not these made for Netflix kind of comics that feel like they're just vomited out of some kind of computer AI program of what's modern and trendy. Those creators and those comics are not getting those deals. About 3 years ago, a bunch of creators they would make a bunch of vague tweets like, I had a very exciting meeting with somebody about a project, taking my project to the screen, very exciting, it's going to happen. Well, it's 3 years later and none of it's happened. Very, very few of these have actually moved past, very few even got into the option stage, and very, very few actually came out. Now, I'm sure it's COVID. COVID just slowed everything down. They'll be around next year for sure. Wink. But the reality is we're not getting Netflix pitches in comics. We may be getting what I think some of these creators think a Netflix pitch is. But in reality, we're getting something much more simple, much more dull than that. We're getting basically a list of bullet points kind of torn from today's headlines. It's as if somebody went to Vox and The Atlantic and maybe kind of one other site. I mean, pick your poison, literally. And they're just kind of, well, we're going to have three characters, and they're going to be a multicultural blend, and there's going to be a couple of them will be dealing with their own sexuality, and there will be some kind of tarot deck involved somehow, and there'll be a couple are playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's fit in there somewhere because Stranger Things did that, and we all like nostalgia, and Dungeons and Dragons kind of feels like that. And they're going to be dealing with climate crisis because there's people are worried about the climate for sure, and racial injustice. Yeah, there'll be some dirty cops in there, probably some old people who are too rich and they've got their money, and it's a very boring, very predictable bullet list of not traits, just like sentences summarizing articles from Slate. It's like somebody goes to a site like Vox or like Slate and basically summarizes all the headlines into a bunch of bullet points, and to do your comic you need to pick 10. And once you pick 10, you ram into it whatever character you're kind of writing for. It's like, all right, we're going to deal with a refugee crisis with the border, and we're going to deal with some human rights issue around abortion, and we're going to deal with misinformation on the internet. And I've got Aquaman, so he'll be in there somehow. We'll just kind of kick him into the story, and he's going to be dealing. I don't know. Maybe there's a evil blogger out there who wants to pollute the ocean because they are pro-capitalism, and therefore they are putting out misinformation on Twitter about how the ocean is bad. And this character has a son that cares about the ocean and is also wanting to come out, but is afraid to say anything to the dad about it, and is to distract from the horrible childhood that they're having, plays Dungeons and Dragons with their friends, and that's how Aquaman comes across them on a beach playing Dungeons and Dragons or doing a tarot reading, or maybe both at the same time, and that's how this whole adventure kicks off. The end. Let's go. The problem is, comics once upon a time was something that was creative. I think one of the things that you were proud of to be in comics was the amount of storytelling potential, the fact that anything could happen, that the whole world was open. I mean, even earlier this year, DC introduced the multiverse and the omniverse and the megaverse and the linearverse and all these verses with the idea that now any story can be told. We're going to unlock the creative freedom of our people. But I'm not sure that creative freedom has been unlocked because people are still going back to this bulleted list. It's the Mad Libs of comic plot creation. And this isn't even, to me, this isn't even about a particular ideology or wokeism versus Trumpism or any of that kind of stuff. It's just it's like cheating on your homework. It's people who, in many cases, feel like they're doing the least amount of effort possible. And the scary part is when you meet some of these people, some will admit, they've got 20 scripts to write and they're just kind of going off of, whatever's near to hand. And these happen to be it. Other people are investing, hours and days into crafting these plots that are, I mean, again, read like a computer AI program can do it. Like a year or so ago, I did this bit that got people mad, and I didn't understand why at the time, but I'm kind of understanding it more now, where I took a bunch of pages. I remember Sean Murphy thought it was funny, and I did to him, where I took some White Knight pages, and I basically took the text, and I shoved it into one of the Google Translate engines, and I translated it back and forth into a bunch of different languages, and then back to English, and then shoved it back in the comic, and be like, this is what it would look like if a computer wrote this book. And it was it's funny. It's a dumb bit. I remember there were some writers who got really pissed about that. Just didn't like it. And I couldn't really understand why. Now I'm starting to suspect it's because it was boiling down these creative ideas into just the bare minimum of just dialogue. That's what a lot of this stuff feels like. Now, that is bad, but it's combined with something that's even worse, that's creating problems. And that's the absolute lack of patience to let any of these storylines play out. One of the cool things about Storm beating Cyclops back in Uncanny X-Men 201, way back. And the premise for this story is Cyclops is the leader of the X-Men. Storm's challenging him for leadership of the team. They're going to fight in the Danger Room for reasons that are mysterious. This isn't the best way to pick a leader, but yeah, why not? Storm has no powers at this point. She's been depowered. Cyclops, of course, veteran leader of the X-Men. He's going to mop the floor with her, but he's troubled and conflicted. He's troubled about Madeline and his new wife and being a father, and there's all these little elements that have made Cyclops troubled, so his mind's not on the fight. Whereas Storm is proving that while her powers were super awesome and formidable, it's the woman, it's her own skill that's going to have her win the fight, and she does. Now, if the reason why this was a great issue and why it was a great payoff is because Storm had been around for 100+ issues, with powers, without powers, overcoming her fears of claustrophobia and all these other things. She'd been through a lot of trials, a lot of setbacks, and a lot of adventures. And we built up her character to the point that when she has this big moment with Cyclops, it's powerful. Now, if you're just bullet pointing out what happened, you could easily summarize this as older straight white leader Cyclops fails to defeat person of color Storm, who defeats him without powers. And you would see a bunch of videos where it's like, oh, look at the Mary Sue Storm. She can even beat somebody without even having any powers. How unrealistic. What a bunch of crap. But people didn't say that. For one thing, it was back during a time when people were sane and we weren't involved in everything we are now. But you wouldn't call Storm Mary Sue. You wouldn't call her, us ridiculous, because they'd spent so much time building to this point that when she won, it made sense. There were still some fans like, I'm still surprised she's able to beat him, but nobody's really complaining about it because they'd put in the work. Today, nobody's putting in that work. Comic books are, you don't have, nobody has the patience to go 100 issues. Nobody has the patience to go 2. So this character is awesome and can win is explained in a caption, in one panel, in a comic. If this was done today, Storm would have been introduced 3 pages earlier and defeat Cyclops handily, and the heavy lifting of she was able to overcome her fears and beat him and take over the team, and she always knew she could do it. She was awesome. That would be explained to you in captions at the top of the page. That's it. There would be no build. When you look at some of the changes going on in both Marvel, DC, other places, you see a extremely impatient form of storytelling where there's no time to show that the person is awesome. There's no time to show the character fall down and fail and have to pick themselves back up again, and that shows strength and it shows perseverance, and there's no time. Nobody cares. It's let's explain this stuff in a caption. It's one of the reasons why when I think Marvel started doing it first, when they were doing these introduction captions like superhero, Avenger, totally awesome person, also a good listener. Don't tell me that stuff. Show me that stuff. And 100 issues is a gift. That's wonderful. I'd even take 12 issues. I take 6. I'm not needy at this point. But when you write to bullet points, again, what you think a Netflix pitch is. A Netflix pitch actually requires a bunch of work, to put together kind of the target market and all these other, business elements to help convince people to take your case. This is like the list of bullets to prep for starting on your PowerPoint for your pitch that you do when you're at a coffee bar and the person you're meeting is late and you've got like 2 or 3 minutes. So you grab a napkin or your phone and you list out 6 traits. That's what's going on. This isn't even a Netflix pitch anymore. It's a Netflix pre kind of brainstorming while you're waiting for the barista to get your coffee. That's what we've got. And that combined with zero patience for letting the story play out equals these extremely hollow, where people are telling you what's going on. You don't need to read the comic. That's the crazy part. I'm looking at the additional interviews from Tom Taylor about Jay Nakamura and Superman, how his relationship's going to progress. And having read the interview, who cares? I don't need to read the comic. He told me what's going to go on. It's like, well, Superman is going to get involved. John Kent's going to try and find his way, and he's going to be loud and make old people uncomfortable, and he's going to tackle climate change and giant robots, and his boyfriend Jay is going to be right there with him because his superpower is he can't be hurt, and they're going to fight crime together. Like, thanks. I don't need to read the comic anymore. You gave it to me. You gave me the bullet points. I don't need to see how it plays out because it doesn't matter at this point how it plays out. That's not right. I mean, let's back it up here a second. Let's assume for the moment that this Jay Nakamura character, who has this weird can't be hurt power, all right, this power should make them invincible, right? Perfect. Well, there's got to be a weakness in there somewhere. What is that weakness? Let's how can that play out? Well, you got a Asian American, or I guess Asian refugee, maybe American character, going for American citizenship. I don't know if that's in the cards or not. Who knows? But you got this new character coming out. Why wouldn't you, wouldn't it be cooler if this character is built up over 2 to 3 years and could be somebody that one day could show up in a movie? That would be neat. But we're not going to get any of that because there's no patience for any of that. We're going to get a couple captions. And the best case scenario is DC is hoping that this crazy Hail Mary for this character is going to immediately, everybody will be super happy and super excited about this character, or down the road 2 or 3 years, Warner Media is going to be like, you know what this movie needs? It needs an Asian character. We realize that we're not doing well with the Asian demographic. Let's shove an Asian character. Who do we got? And then somebody goes and scrounges up the characters that DC has created and forgotten, and that's how this character comes to the screen. That's our option A, option B. Those both options suck. Like, can we not have the character built up over time so that when eventually we want to do more with it, it's meaningful? Again, look at Storm. The reason why Storm has persevered, the reason why a lot of people's favorite character is Storm, is because they took a long time establishing Storm's character, having her grow, having her evolve, having her change, having her combat her weaknesses and improve upon them, having her have powers, lose powers, see her in both scenarios. That's why Storm works. That's why that character is beloved decades later. You're not going to get that same effect if you're just hot-shotting characters and angles. I compare a lot to wrestling. Any character that comes out and Vince McMahon goes, you're going to love this character right now. Start loving him right now. This is a top main eventer. It's rejected 100% of the time. People like to see the build. If you take away the build, if you go for this, Netflix brainstorming bulleted list, that's not a character. It's not a story. It's not going to get you anywhere, and it's going to fail. It's madness. I don't know. Anyway, that's my opinion on all of it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hey, like and subscribe if you like, and thanks for listening.